For the past 200 years, there has been an intense debate over how humans came to be. On one side of the argument, there is the belief in creationism, which is the belief that God created humans as they are, and that Adam and Eve were the first humans. On the other hand, there is the belief in evolution. Evolution is the theory that humans have evolved over time from other species. This theory, that of Charles Darwin, who came up with this idea while studying bird species in the Galapagos Islands. Creationism is one of the main beliefs that is part of this debate. It is derived from the Bible passage in Genesis that tells the story of God making Adam and Eve. Creationism is the religious explanation as to how humans came to be. Due to the many various religions that are a part of public schools, creationism is not allowed to be taught. So from creationism branched another explanation for the beginnings of man. It is known as intelligent design. Intelligent design is essentially the belief that evolution is wrong and that a higher power of intelligent being created humans, but not necessarily a god.
The creationists believe that since everything has such a complex design, that means there is or was a designer or creator. The creationists back up their theory by saying that since no one can physically see a human mind, should we believe it is false even when the human mind controls the actions of the humans themselves? Since they cannot hear, taste, touch, smell, or see it, this leads one to the belief that one complex mind created all designs of the universe and the universe itself. Creationists believe that the evolution theory has a burden of evidence because the creation theory has been the historic and inherent explanation for all cultures and religions until about 200 years ago at the start of Charles Darwin's theory. One argument made by the followers of the creation theory on the evolution theory is that natural selection, which is that nature produces random acts to change a species, only produces minor changes in species, but cannot generate new species from pre-existing species. A scientist, an intelligent design theorist named Michael Behe, produced a theory of irreducible complexity that coincides with Darwin's theory of slight modification over time, by saying that certain biological systems, such as bacterial flagellum, could not have evolved from simpler forms through slight modification, because if one part is changed or taken away, the whole system fails. Each part is required to work, so the whole system had to appear as a whole system.
Most creationism arguments made by creationists won't usually be for creationism, but will mostly be against evolutionism. They do this literally by commanding it to explain everything in the universe. Creationists believe that intelligent life has not been around for millions and billions of years, but mere thousands. To creationists, Adam and Eve are our ancestors, not chimpanzees or orangutans. In the intelligent design theory, the word intelligent designer replaces God in creationism to throw off any religious connection. The evidence creationists need to disapprove evolutionists is well defined and would be easy to obtain, but does not seem to exist. Creationists seem to expect evolutionists to explain everything from every species to every single little feature. Any questions evolutionists can't answer is believe that evolution is wrong and creation is right.
On the other hand is evolutionism. Evolutionism is the belief that humans developed over time through natural selection. The theory of natural selection was thought of by Charles Darwin. Darwin noticed different kinds of birds were suited for different things. One bird had a small beak for eating small seeds. Another bird had a large beak for eating and crushing large seeds. Darwin was sure that these were all different species of birds, but upon consulting a bird specialist, was told that they were all the bird species finches. So Darwin realized that the birds must have adapted to their surroundings, and his explanation for how this happened was natural selection. Darwin published his ideas in the book called Origin of Species. Once his book was published, the religious people of London had a major impact. Many people hated the idea of evolution for the fact that it totally contradicted their religious beliefs, since they believed a totally different theory, which is called creationism. Because of the commotion that stirred after Darwin introduced his theory, he decided to leave London for peace and quiet, and it brought him to a tiny village just 16 miles away from the outside of the city, and for the next 40 years his home. This house was called the Down House, and was told to be Darwin's retreat. This very house is where Darwin worked vigorously on writing The Origin of Species.
Natural selection is when a mutation of a species occurs that is an advantage to that species. That advantage is passed down until all that species has that positive mutation. That keeps happening until the species evolves. For example, if a black moth lives in a forest full of white trees, it is easily spotted by predators. But then a mutation occurs that produces a white moth of that species. The white moth survives due to its camouflage and reproduces, which patches down the white gene to its children. Because all the black moth species get eaten before they can reproduce, they cannot reproduce. Eventually, all the moths in the species will become white. Over time, another mutation would happen, and this process would repeat itself.
Evolutionists believe that the other side, creationism, has no evidence because no one can see a creator, hear, taste, touch, or smell the creator, so it cannot be real. The evolutionists do well with theoretical science, but seem to have less evidence. They theorize that the universe, with it containing everything, space, time, matter, and energy, exploded from nothing, which is contrary to the first law of thermodynamics, which is no matter or energy can be created or destroyed. The Big Bang Theory fails to explain the cosmic voids and lumps. Charles Darwin didn't have a clear picture of the laws of inheritance, of traits which an Austrian monk, Gregor Mendel, discovered only a few years earlier. In the late 1900s, genetic scientists merged Mendel's laws of inheritance into Darwin's evolution theory to make neo-Darwinism. The evolution theory challenged the Christian belief system in two ways. One, the theory crossed the line of faith and science by saying that species changed over time, which comes in conflict with the Bible, where it states God created earth in 7 days, and on the last day he created mankind. And two, Darwin theorized natural selection, which states species produced random variations, and that only those beings whose characteristics that allow them to survive and reproduce can live a long life. This comes in conflict with the moral divinity, which is that if you worship God in your lifetime, he will let you live a long life and also determines the individual's success or failure in life. Although there is a lot of evidence on microevolution, which is small evolution, there is no evidence on the macroevolution, which is large evolution, of a species making an entirely new and different species. Evolutionists believe that if God really did exist, why did he go to such enormous lengths to make such an intricate family tree of species by carefully designing their structures and land to match? Evolution is not literally an attack on all beliefs, because some ancient religions did believe that humans were related to animals or being created from animals' parts. Creationism or any variations often deters from specific predictions such as not only what species can exist, but what cannot. It states of a God who can create any species imaginable. Evolution gives scientific facts to back up theories like these. For years, there were arguments over which to teach in the classroom, Darwinism or creationism. That argument was put to rest years ago after the Scopes monkey trial, which involved a science teacher named John Scopes getting arrested for teaching his students that men evolved from monkeys, hence the Scopes monkey trial. After that case, which John Scopes won, the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that teaching creationism in schools was a violation of separation of church and state. One recent case of creationism versus Darwinism, or more specifically intelligent design versus Darwinism, occurred locally at Dover School District. Some parents lobbied against only the theory of Darwinism being taught, and they wanted to include creationism in the classroom by splitting the class time between Darwinism and creationism 50-50. But because creationism is not allowed to be taught in the classroom due to separation of church and state, those who wanted creationism in the classroom turned to intelligent design. But some science teachers and parents of students said that intelligent design had nothing to do with science and that it should not be allowed to be taught in the classroom.
So in the court case, the argument came down to whether or not intelligent design was science or creationism in disguise. During the case, there was a discovery of what could be considered a missing link from fish to land animals. The fossils was what looked to be a fish, but this fish had a flat head and its eyes on top, not the sides. The fish also had the developing bone structure of arms and legs. But this information was unveiled too late for it to be used in trial. Meanwhile, arguments on the side of intelligent design in the trial were that most parts of an organism's body are so complex that if you take just one part away, they are useless. On the side of Darwinism, it was argued that intelligent design had no substantial scientific basis and that no testing or experiment had ever been done to prove it. In the end, the judge ruled that intelligent design was a sugar-coated version of creationism and that it was unfit for it to be taught in the classroom. Currently, Darwinism is being taught in schools all around the world, and more information is being put forth every day that helps its case.